The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guest. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, here we go. And if you don't mind, stay tuned for just a moment while I tell you the show is always represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Other lawyers say they'll go to trial if they won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, they go to trial for you. And what a huge show lined up today. We're excited about it. Heath Shuler will join us, the former Vol, later in the program. We'll also get to the key players for the Wolfpack as Tennessee and North Carolina State set for the Duke's Mayo Classic. And I do want to remind you that Caleb Calhoun is the one that absolutely loves mayonnaise. Also, four bold predictions for the Vols and Wolfpack. Hey, I said Ethan Davis, Jordan Ross would make plays, and I almost nailed the score. So if you're busy Saturday night and you just want to check that out, that's online. We will discuss that. Also, it's time to start the NFL. How's that the case? Top 10 balls in the NFL. Is James Pierce a luxury? Now, that's something I want to dig into with this guy right here, Will West of WNML. And you can hear him from 3 to 7 each and every day. Will, how are you, sir?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you guys having me.
Love having you on. I know your impressions because I talked to you yesterday. But for those that didn't hear it, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts on Tennessee in game one and now headed into, you would think, a much tougher matchup with North Carolina State?
I thought Tennessee did what you wanted a very good team to do against a team like Chattanooga. They destroyed them. They mauled them. They could have done whatever they wanted to, and Nico looked fantastic. The tempo of the offense was there. I thought defensively, the defensive line played incredibly well. Not just did they beat guys that are 40 pounds lighter than they are or lesser athletes than they are, but the way that they were able to play together is something that I don't think we've seen from Tennessee's offensive line in the last few years. So I thought that was fantastic. And the biggest thing, and I have harped on this for like a decade on our show, is I would watch Nick Saban and Kirby Smart just maul these FCS teams and play their starters for a half. By the time you get to the third quarter, you're playing your second string. Middle of, 8-10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you're playing your freshman and your third string. It creates a level of depth that Tennessee's never had. And so by the time you have a guy that gets injured in week 6 or something like that, the guy behind has played, a half of 4 different games, and that's a lot of game time. But we would see Butch Jones. He would take his foot off the gas, right? We would see that or they wouldn't be aggressive enough in what they were able to do so that they could get those backups in. Tennessee did that. And so it was good to see Tennessee do that. They actually used the depth. They've talked a lot for years since Josh Heupel's been here about how they'll use depth and they'll use a lot of guys, but they really didn't. So we saw them use their depth on the defensive line in the secondary, a running back, in the wide receiver especially. I mean, it was like it was Ramel Keaton's birthright that he was going to be starting on that right side for Tennessee, a wide receiver last year. They mixed things up and they moved the guys around. And look, you know Fred White. Fred White always said the thing that made them so good in the 90s was the competition, was that if I didn't kill it, the guy behind me was going to take my job because that dude wanted to play in the NFL too. Tennessee having that depth and using that depth creates competition, which is going to make everybody on the field better.
Forgot to say hello to Caleb. Caleb, how are you, sir? Take over.
Yeah. Did you notice that, Will? He didn't even say hi to his co-host.
Yeah, that's I have a lot of buttons to push, Will.
Will, let's dive in from that game because let's go ahead and start with the Tennessee-Chattanooga game and what we're expecting this week. The Nico Heisman for Heisman talk has already begun. I said it would begin in Knoxville. Dave and I both said it would begin in Knoxville and Chattanooga after the Chattanooga game. I said it would go national after the Oklahoma game. I'm maybe starting to reroute that. And I just want to go ahead and ask you straight up. Is Nico Iamaleava going to be a Heisman favorite?
Well, can I set it up a little bit more if you don't mind, Caleb? Because I've got all these production elements I pay for. It's today's tough question with Will West and WNML.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Caleb, you say it. Nico, you think will be a Heisman frontrunner after this week? Is that the question?
Yes. Will Nico be a Heisman not a Heisman frontrunner, the Heisman favorite after NC State?
He will definitely not be the Heisman favorite, but he will be a Heisman. He is already a Heisman contender, and he will be even deeper into being a Heisman contender. I mean, Carson Beck led the SEC in passing last year. Georgia, I don't believe is going to lose anytime soon. Probably the first opportunity is that Texas game. And there's familiarity there. So I think Carson Beck right now, I would say, is the front runner. Even though Dylan Gabriel is the betting favorite, I think we all know what you get from Dylan Gabriel. We've seen it for like 6 years in college football. But Nico's going to continue to grow. And a lot of times that's who wins the Heisman, right? RG3, nobody saw it coming. If you look at it, I think I went through it yesterday. 3 of the last 4 years, the guy who won the Heisman Trophy was not the betting favorite. So somebody that can come out of nowhere and win the Heisman Trophy, or be the 3rd, 4th, 6th highest odds and win the Heisman Trophy. So he'll be a continued Heisman contender, but I don't think he's going to be the favorite.
Well, you mentioned Dylan Gabriel specifically, and he is the favorite right now, according to most lines. He's going to put up great numbers, but I think if people really watch the games, which some Heisman voters don't, I do. I think Nico is at another level. I think that his ceiling is higher, to use an NFL term. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, what you get from Dylan Gabriel is Hendon Hooker with lesser rushing yards. That's what you get. I mean, his stats have been almost the same every time. The other thing that I would caution people about Dylan Gabriel is it's the first time in his career he's running a different system. He's ran exactly the same system everywhere that he's been, whether it was at UCF or Oklahoma, because Jeff Lebby was the OC there. So Dylan Gabriel's running a different system, and we'll see how that goes for him. But his stats are not going to be eye-popping. They're going to be very good. And so does Oregon win enough that having very good stats gets him there? But no, Nico is a different level pro prospect. We were trying to go through it like at the end of last week. Okay, who does Nico remind you of? Or like to have the hype and the lure before you do a single thing on a football field, part of that because of the NIL deal. I was looking at saying, well, maybe Tebow, because Tebow was already a thing, even though they couldn't trust him to run the offense his freshman year. They just had goal line packages for him. And Paige Dower mentioned to us Tua, because she was working at Alabama at that time, University of Alabama, doing content for them. And she said Tua was almost exactly the same thing. And I could see that, right? I could see Nico having that Tua, Tebow, that kind of ceiling in college football. So, yeah, his ceiling is definitely higher.
I would throw out there, Caleb, I want your take too. I would throw out there Bryce Young, because I felt like everybody I talked to in the SEC were like, he's going to take over and at least be very good. He might win a Heisman. So that would be one that I would throw out there as well, Caleb.
Bryce Young's a good one. The thing that stands out to me with Nico, before I want to go down some of the guys on the list, is that I was actually tracking Will live on Saturday, and FanDuel moved Nico from 6th to 3rd in real time on their Heisman odds. Then the rest of the games happened, and he's now down to 7th. And so he went from 6th to 3rd to back down to 7th. His odds are right back at where they were before last Saturday, which is at plus 1,400. Cam Ward has moved ahead of him, and the other I understand. Do we all agree that Cam Ward earned the right to move ahead of him after what he did last Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. He looked unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay. So Cam Ward for Miami, absolute domination. I understand Carson Beck. I want to get to the others. I'm a little frustrated by the Dylan Gabriel one, because I understand it's not Vegas. It's not in Vegas's nature to overreact. But come on, we all saw that Oregon-Idaho game. And Idaho's not even a low-level FBS program anymore. They're FCS, and they won 24-14. He should have dropped, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do wonder how much of that is them trying to make money, right? Like it's a little bit of it is they're capitalists. So I wonder if that's why Dylan Gabriel is at the top, because there's going to be hype around him, Oregon, all of those things. And he's a familiar name that you can go with it. You know he's going to put up very good stats. Yeah, I look, I'll be floored if Dylan Gabriel wins the Heisman Trophy this year. Just mouth agape if that happens. But could I see Cam Ward? Here's the thing about Cam Ward. Last year, Mario Cristobal, the coach of Miami, brought in an air raid offensive coordinator, didn't let him run air raid. And this year, he in the first quarter, they don't really run a lot of air raid stuff. Second and third quarter, they do. Fourth quarter, nope, park the bus. We're going to run the ball because that's what we do. I'm an offensive line guy. And so I do wonder if Mario Cristobal is going to let Cam Ward do what he did in the middle of that game against Florida. And if he but I will say Cam Ward looked fantastic, and that system can build to putting up astronomical stats. But look, I think Nico is going to be in the Heisman conversation. I think he can be a Heisman finalist. He can win the whole thing. And to me, that's plenty good enough for a guy who had started one game in his life in college football before we got to the Chattanooga game.
I agree. If he ends up in New York, that's a win, and Tennessee's in the college football playoffs. There's no question. But the best player on Tennessee's football team may play on the other side of things. We were talking just before we went on the air, and we used a word I never thought we would say about a potential number one pick in the NFL draft. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Tell me if I'm crazy, Will West. And What the H brought to you by the Hemp House. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK to get 10% off. James Pierce, the more I look at Tennessee, is a luxury. Why? Because their depth is more significant than James Pierce. They would be a very good defense without James Pierce. So if you had to choose between the depth that Tennessee has and potentially the best NFL prospect in college football, which would it be?
No, I would take the depth all day long. I would just as soon have. It's one of the things that I don't understand about roster building in the National Football League. I don't want one end, one corner, one, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need one edge rusher, one corner, one running back, one quarterback, and a wide receiver, and then I'm just scrap heaping everybody else on my roster because of where the salary cap is. An edge is good. But you can have, look, I'm a New York Giants fan, unfortunately. We had Michael Strahan for years and didn't do a single thing. But then when we got Justin Tuck and Antonio Pierce and we ended up having depth on the defensive line, people couldn't, you know what I mean? Like the Giants win 2 Super Bowls. So defensive end and edge, that's good. It's good to have that. It's not a bad thing to have that, but it's not like a quarterback. A quarterback makes makes a difference in the game. How many edge rushers in your life have you ever seen win a game for a team? To me, there's 2. Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White. I've never seen another edge rusher win a game for his team. And I don't know that James Pierce is that, and I definitely don't think he is yet. I would look at it this way. I think there's something in between luxury item and valuable, most valuable. I think like so I have an off-road vehicle, and my Bronco has 35s on it. I don't need the off-road 35 tires on it, but it's cool to have it if I ever need it. And that's kind of how I look at James Pierce is, cool to have it. So maybe the luxury is the right term to use there. Because James Pierce won't win a single game for Tennessee this year, but a quarterback, running back, even a great wide receiver or depth on the defensive line probably will win some games for Tennessee this year.
I would throw Derek Thomas maybe in that conversation, which kind of was a poor man's Lawrence Taylor. Lance said best defensive line depth since 2004, 2005. I covered that team. And I didn't think it was as deep as this one, Caleb.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny. I'm starting to think, depth can be more important than overall weapons in general in the defensive line, unless you have, is it safe to say, wouldn't a bigger exception be a defensive tackle than a defensive end? And Dave and I have gone back and forth on this forever. And I want to know what you would think. I still would take a combo of John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth on the interior before I would take a James Pierce on the edge.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree. I absolutely would, especially in this day and age of college football, because interior pass rush is so much more important right now. Dudes aren't just sitting in the pocket, just 5-7 step drop. And so that edge beating his guy means that you've disrupted how many ever plays. James Pierce is a great player, not a very good player, great player, could be the number 1 pick in the draft. But I don't like it. What's a realistic sack projection for him this year? 12? right? Like, is that an unreasonable one, or am I too low saying 12? Like, so that's does he affect the blocking on every single play? Myles Garrett in the NFL affects the blocking on every single play what teams do. And so that, even though you don't see the stats necessarily, that is a game changer. James Pierce can't affect the blocking on what Tennessee does because of the depth that they have at defensive line. So if you told me right now I could roll with James Pierce comes off of if you put it to me this way, you don't get James Pierce, he decides I'm locking it up, I'm going to pull a Bosa, and I'm waiting for to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and I'm not playing anymore. But everybody else on the defensive line stays healthy. Or you have James Pierce and you deal with the normal wear and tear that you deal with a defensive line. I would take everybody else just because depth matters that much more than one high-level player at that position, in my opinion.
Interesting. The other thing that I found very interesting about James Pierce is I went back and watched because I'm sick. And I kind of tracked what he did. He dropped into coverage a lot, and he only played 10 plays, so he didn't play a lot. But to me, I think that's kind of giving NC State a look where he's going to be more active as a pass rusher against the Wolfpack.
It could be. I don't know, honestly. If you look at it, most of Pierce's stats came from a few games, right? And then you had a lot of just not a lot, you know what I mean, from him. So I don't know what he's going to be and what he's going to do. I also don't know how they're going to use him because I thought James Pierce was most effective when Tennessee had the depth on a defensive line last year where they could – they were just sending 4 in, and it was almost like a line change in hockey where 4 would go out, 4 would go in, Pierce is fresh. That's when I thought he was most disruptive. When he had to stay on the field the entire game, you saw the numbers go down. Now, you also saw it was later in the season, you saw the competition get better. So I don't know how they're going to use him, and we'll see. I don't think Chattanooga gives us a gauge of what he's going to do. I think there were a lot of things he had to work on, but the raw ability is incredible. So let's see how much he's grown and how he can affect blocking when he's on the field for 60 plays a game. I want to see what that looks like if he can stay on the field for 60 plays a game.
Yeah, so playing off that, Will, can we go to this? Keenan Peely or James Pierce? Who's more important? Because I think there's an argument. Am I crazy to say there's an argument for, and I think Dave wrote this, right? That we both think that at least this weekend, Keenan Peely is more important, and it's possible all season.
Specifically Saturday, I would say Peely.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially this week. Now, I like the linebackers that they have, but they're all unproven, right? So, and I watched Keenan Peely play a high level of college football. So I would agree with you that Keenan Peely is more important, especially this week because of the way that they use Concepcion. That I also think, look, we all know what Robert Anae does, the offensive coordinator at NC State. He's done the same thing forever since he was at BYU and Virginia, and they're going to run the ball up the middle. That's the thing they're going to do. Like, that is something they're going to do. They're going to run play action off of it. And so I think that this week I would agree with you, Caleb, that Keenan Peely is probably more important this week than James Pierce will be.
I go back to last year when Keenan Peely was out and they didn't have his leadership and calling the plays. Tennessee's linebackers just like they were running around lost.
Yeah, no, I agree. And well, you had Herring, who probably didn't need to be on the field yet. You had Arian Carter, who felt like who was lost. Helander, they didn't know what they were doing. And I just never thought Aaron Beasley was an SEC level player. There were games where he was an SEC level player, but he was a guy that would have run 4.7, 4.8 the combine. Like he's just not but he played his butt off to be able to even get to the level that he did. But to me, he was a guy that should have been a group of 5 mid-major linebacker, and I think he'd have been pretty good with that. I think he played above what I would have considered his potential. But yeah, look, there were a lot of times too, you watch those guys diving at ankles. You watch the Alabama game, the third quarter. If you go back and watch that game, it's how many times it was the pass off between linebacker and safety is where Jalen Milroe would attack. And Tennessee got lit up like a Christmas tree in that spot. So having a linebacker that knows what to do there in that pass off, having a linebacker that against Missouri will step into the alley and hit somebody in their hips or in their stomach as opposed to diving at their ankles. I think that's going to be massive for Tennessee this year because it was a problem. It was.
No, agreed. And I like what Keenan Peely brings just as far as an even kill approach to this team. Let's turn to specifically the guys that put their hands on the ground. You think Tyree West has proven that he's a special player, or he had a couple tackles for a loss and looked good, or do you think that's just Chattanooga? I mean, did you really draw any conclusions from any of the guys in the trenches against the Mocs?
Yeah, I think that the way they played together, right? One thing that was a problem last year, and I remember arguing with Kevin Simon about this, which I'm arguing with a guy with 11 years as an NFL scout. Maybe I need to shut up. But, I argued with him last year because the Missouri game, Tennessee goes to a 3-3, and the linebackers would run with the pulling H-back, and then Missouri would just run outside zone to that side. And I would be like, Kevin, what in the world are these linebackers running with the eye candy? They've got to be, where the play's going. Everybody in the building knows where the play's going. Everybody watching on television knows where the play's going. Somebody's got to stay outside and set an edge. And his argument was, no, it's that defensive end's job to set an edge. Well, he wasn't doing it. So, it may be somebody's job to, if the trash guy, it's his job to pick up my trash on Thursday mornings. If he doesn't do it, I got to go take it to the dump after that, right? And so that was my argument was, well, they're not going to do it. So why don't you're going to have to change your strategy. And he said, no, this is how we teach it. If the H-back goes in motion, then the linebackers need to run that direction. That way you're already there for pursuit. What Tyree West did was set that edge. And he set an edge in a way that I have not seen since Josh Heupel's been here yet from a defensive end. And he did an amazing job with it. Everybody points out the sack that he had. That was on a blown blocking assignment. It was a very good play. But the very next play, he sets an edge and ends up with a tackle for a loss and hits the running back in the backfield. And that was something I don't think that we've seen from Tennessee's defensive line in quite a long time.
Will, how crucial is something like that in making a superstar out of an edge rusher like James Pierce? Because to bring it back to James Pierce, elite edge rushers like that are typically only as good as the rest of the line because, as I'm sure you remember, I bring it up with Dave all the time, Jadeveon Clowney had a Heisman campaign in 2013, which I thought was stupid because you can always run away from an edge rusher, and he had a drop-off of a year. So how much more crucial is a Tyree West or an Amari Thomas even in the middle to making a superstar out of James Pierce? That's what turns Pierce into a superstar, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. Is that someone on the other side, if Pierce does affect blocking, someone on the other side has to do enough that you can't change your blocking and double team James Pierce on every single play, right? So I think that's massive. And I agree with you on Jadeveon Clowney. I didn't understand that whatsoever. I thought really good athlete, really good player. I also wonder why he's the first number 1 overall pick, because the second he deals with a high ankle sprain and loses even a split second on his explosiveness, he's just a guy or a pretty good guy. And that's what he was once he got to the NFL. But what I think that somebody else on that other edge means that you've got to block Tennessee honest. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones is fantastic. When teams have to double team Chris Jones, that's when things and can collapse the offensive line. That's when things can get better. That's when things get better for the Chiefs and where Jones has his value. Warren Sapp. I have never seen anything until the first time I saw Warren Sapp play in person. I don't think that I had ever seen anything like that, where that dude just collapses an entire side of the offensive line, and the rest of the Bucs defense was able to just feast unblocked, and it was running back versus Derek Brooks. It was running back versus whoever they had at edge. Like it was wild how much that can affect it when somebody has to double team with a chip a guy like Warren Sapp. So can James Pierce become that? And I don't think Clowney ever was that. I thought he was a really good player that you didn't have to double and triple team. Myles Garrett is a guy you have to double and triple team. So I think for Pierce, to me, it's more about how he's going to affect the blocking moving forward. But he does have to be out there. I mean, think about Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett is a rotational third down pass edge rusher, right? And so now you can be on the field for 2 downs because people are throwing 2 out of 3 downs these days. But he's not an every down edge rusher. J.J. Watt was an every down edge, right? T.J. Watt's an every down edge. Myles Garrett's an every down edge. But we see teams that will bring in these pass rush specialists, and that's what they do, and they're rotational players, but they're kind of like middle relievers versus being like a starter when you get to the next level.
Let me ask you this. Tennessee's best defensive asset is, and this was our poll question, James Pierce depth, the offense.
I think it's the offense. I do. Because I've watched Tennessee. Yeah, I've watched Tennessee win 10 games with the 125th ranked pass defense in America. So I think the offense, being able to go tempo, scoring a bajillion points, it allows them to be bend, don't break. They don't have to be dominant. But I like having that depth. I would like having that depth a lot, especially if my offense is going to go a million miles an hour yet again. And And so I know they're going to be on the field for a long time.
I know Caleb has one more about Nico that he sent me via the messenger. I got to ask him about this. But the other thing I want to ask you, it's National Cheese Pizza Day. Ordering a cheese pizza is lame. I need toppings or delicious.
It's still delicious. I would rather have toppings, but I'm still eating. It's kind of like, I don't know, watching SMU and BYU play this weekend. Like, that's kind of lame, but I'm watching because it's football. And that's kind of the way that I would equate this is watching Tennessee play Chattanooga, still watching Tennessee play football. That's like cheese pizza to me. It's kind of like a frozen, like a Totino's party pizza. So I'm still eating it. I'm still going to consume, and I'm glad to consume it, but it's not what I would order if I got to choose.
And you get as old as me, you get like a hangover from those Totino's pizza, all that processed food. It's like I feel horrible the next day. All right, Caleb.
Yeah, so Will, and by the way, I'm Team Cheese Pizza. I love it on when National Pizza Day lines up with the first day of the NFL. It just seems like it fits too perfectly. But yeah, I agree. And BYU SMU, Casey Woods is SMU's offensive coordinator. Little known fact. All right, I want to go back to the Nico Heisman stuff because I'm going to name these quarterbacks that are ahead of him on FanDuel. And I want you to just tell me if they'll be ahead or behind Nico after Saturday. So let's start with Dylan Gabriel. Will Nico be ahead of him? Yes or no?
Yes.
You think Nico will – wait, Dylan Gabriel's number 1 in the Heisman race right now. You think Nico will leapfrog him?
Yeah, I don't think Dylan Gabriel's going to be a Heisman finalist.
All right. Well, no, I'm saying after Saturday.
After Saturday? No, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
I just thought you meant at the end of the year.
Let's play this game. Yeah, I'll say after Saturday and then at the end of the year. So after Saturday, you say no. After Saturday, you say no, but for the end of the year, you say yes, right?
Yes.
All right. Jackson Dart.
No, yes, Jackson Dart will be ahead of Nico, and no, he will not at the end of the year.
Okay.
If you look at the stats for Jackson Dart last year, they weren't that great. Right? Like, so I just think that's what Lane does with his quarterbacks, and it wins. So he should keep doing that, but it is going to probably keep Jackson Dart from winning the Heisman or even contending.
Yes. I'll go yes and yes. He'll be ahead of Jackson next week and at the end of the year.
Okay.
I'm with Dave on this. Yes and yes on that.
Okay. So am I saying yes, Nico will be ahead, or yes, the other person will be ahead?
Yes is for Nico. Yes is in favor of Nico.
Then no and yes.
Gotcha.
Okay. There we go. All right. Cam Ward.
Yes and yes, or no and no. Nico will not be ahead of him, and I don't think Nico's going to finish ahead of him. I am concerned because Mario Cristobal, if he actually lets his quarterback throw the forward pass for an entire season, it'll be the first time he's ever done that. But when you have a quarterback that good and an air raid offensive coordinator, you're going to let that guy cook. And I think he will this time because I don't know that his job doesn't depend on it.
All right, so last 3, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers.
Carson Beck, no and no. Jalen Milroe, no and yes. And Quinn Ewers, no and yes. I think Quinn Ewers, he's never stayed healthy. Like, he's never been healthy for a full season. And I just don't know why this would be the time that changes. He holds the ball a really long time because he's tough as nails, and he gets blasted a lot. He's kind of very Big Ben-esque, but without Big Ben's body. So I think he's going to play 10 games like he always plays 10 games.
With that
So you think
that would make him Little Ben?
He's Little Ben, yeah.
So just to make this clear, what everybody just heard, Will does not believe that Nico leapfrogs anybody in the Heisman race after this week.
Not this year, not this week. I don't know that the stats are going to be insane this week, and I think other people are going to have big stupid stats everywhere. Now, the thing that will help Nico is that there are no other games in the evening, so it's pretty much just going to be Tennessee and North Carolina State if you want to watch a big college football game on Saturday.
Brother, appreciate you, man. Have a fantastic day and take care of yourself. We'll talk soon.
Hey, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Will. Will is the best. Will West, you can hear him 3 to 7 on the Sports Animal. As I want to get to the stat of the day, and I'm actually going to, do you care if I take over and do stat of the day? By the way, I mentioned the Hemp House earlier, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechat2ts.com, hemphousechat2ts.com. Use promo code HOOK for 10% off, HOOK for 10% off. So, Caleb, do you care if I handle the stat of the day? Because
I'm not going to complain about that.
I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, and somebody posted that they agreed on I answer a lot of the YouTube posts, by the way, guys. So it's a great way to interact with us. And He said, I thought you, and he must have been an early morning guy too, because he said, I thought you were joking about the 3:45 a.m. production meeting. I was like, I was, but I just couldn't sleep. So I went ahead and got up and wrote. So this is going to blow you away here momentarily. All right. The number of Tennessee defensive linemen that played in double-digit snaps against Chattanooga. Caleb, you're not allowed to look it up. No Googling. And it's brought to you by Medicare Misty. The stat of the day brought to you by Medicare Misty. She's registered in over 40 states. So wherever you're watching, she can take care of you, and there's no charge for her services. Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, Caleb. So how many Tennessee defensive linemen played double-digit snaps against the Mocs?
So I know 15.
Go ahead.
I know 15 played. So I'm going to say 11 played double-digit snaps.
Higher.
13.
You nailed it. I'm sure that's happened at a game I've covered before, but I can't recall it. Does that not seem like a bizarro stat to you?
That is an insane stat. It is wild. I mean, it's part of this is because you have guys that would in many systems be outside linebackers be listed as defensive linemen now as edge rushers. To be fair, we have to throw that caveat in because like I could see a lot of teams in the 90s, James Pierce would have been an outside linebacker, right? No one would have listed him as a defensive end.
Yes. And that leads us to the poll question we want you to vote on. Tennessee's best defensive asset is James Pierce, depth, the offense. Will, who joined us, went with the offense. And I thought I heard you say something. Do you agree with him on that?
Yeah, the offense is the best part. The offense is the best part of this team. I mean, the defensive depth is great.
The best defensive asset. I mean, what helps the defense the most? The fact that the offense puts them in a good situation, their depth, or James Pierce is how I'm trying to phrase this question. Hopefully
okay. I see what you're saying. It's still the offense.
Okay. No, I tend to agree with
the offense. The offense allows Tim Banks to be so creative with what he wants to do on defense that where it doesn't matter if he gives up a lot of yards, but they can set up obvious passing downs. That's why the defense had issues last year. I think there's a really good chance the defense was better than we thought it was last year, but the offense didn't get the leads you needed to get.
I would agree with that. So, Caleb, I'm going to go ahead and let you fire the commercial break because I'm not sure which one to click on here. I want to remind you the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Banks & Jones. Other lawyers said they'll go to court. They won't. They just won't. Tennessee's trial attorney. Other lawyers settle for less, not T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Heath Shuler coming up next. How awesome is that? Hit that like button, please. Take 1 second. I see all of you in there. I just would like for you to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to this point, easy for me to say, I would greatly appreciate that. So please hit the subscribe button. And we also would absolutely love you to turn those notifications on, as they will certainly allow you some information as to YouTube and when Caleb's dropping the videos, as he does each and every afternoon. And we'll have a little Cooper Maze. Portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Boulevard or online at qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker said, hey, Bo. This is Off the Hook Sports. Heath Shuler up next.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford & Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2023 Ford Expedition Limited 4x4 $67,950, 2017 Ford F-150 Raptor SVT $41,950, 2023 Ford Escape ST Line $28,940. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Welcome back to the program, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. Heath Shuler, nice enough to join us, former Tennessee quarterback. And Heath, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Hey, we appreciate it. You're one of my favorites. And when I think Carolina and I think quarterbacking, you're the one. So the Vols looked pretty good on Saturday. Before we talk Nico's performance and Grayson McCall to some extent for NC State, just what did you think about the way that the entire team came out?
Yeah, I think there's been times that the Tennessee teams either got a really good start and then slowed down on the second quarter. But it looked to me like, and obviously, we played a really good team in their conference, but it's not a Power 5 school. But we didn't have the offsides mistakes. We didn't have a lot of the penalties and the problems and issues. We played fast, we played hard, and we played as you never play a game mistake-free, but we kept the ball away from the defense in for the most part. And, Nico didn't have a turnover. We didn't fumble the football. We didn't have the offsides. We didn't have the miscommunication. And that's usually that first game worry. From a coach's standpoint, you're really worried about what's going to happen in that first game. How are you going to be able to control the nervousness? Because, look, everybody gets nervous when you go out to the games. And once a game starts and then you get hit a couple times and then you kind of settle down. But it seemed like the team went fast, played hard, did all the right things, and offensively, defensively. And, I know we want to talk a lot about Nico, but let me tell you what, that defensive front is something special.
Well, it might be, we can go in that direction. James Pierce, a North Carolina guy. David Hobbs, a North Carolina guy.
Right.
I will tell you what, I don't remember Tennessee's defensive front being that deep in quite some time.
Yeah, the depth. And then, I think the great thing is, you got a coaching staff there that's able to, recruit extremely well. But also, get these guys to understand, hey, look, we're going to give you an opportunity. You're going to go in, you're going to play really, really hard, 4 or 5 downs, 6 downs. We're going to trade you out and you're going to be fresh. And, you can just bring another, front 4 in every time. And you're going to get, guys that are fresh legs that can go in and compete at an extremely high level. I think that's beneficial not only now, but once we get deeper into the season and we start playing in more SEC teams when things really count, having that ability to have some depth is really good. And then, heaven forbid an injury happens. But if that does happen, you got guys that can actually step up on that front 7.
I'm going to base this off body language, but the 3 quarterbacks that went out there in high pressure situations, early in their career that I thought had the most calm body language would be you, Casey Clausen, and Nico in the times that I've covered. What's the key to having that mindset where you don't because that was his first game in Neyland Stadium. That's a little different than playing Iowa.
Yeah. I think it would, I think having confidence in yourself and your teammates around you is first and foremost. And so I like him to have, that little swagger of confidence, the way he does, the way he carries himself. And I think that has a lot to do with that front offensive line, the way they're able to perform. And I'm sure there's times they're going to be able to get him out of some situations that a young quarterback, we all needed that at that time, right? You had to rely on somebody that you could count on that front, that offensive line to get you out of a bad run or get you into a better, pass protection. I think having those confidence in his offensive line allows him to really focus on the passing game, allows him to really focus on his skill set. And so when you have those things, you can go in, and I think that's the separator between good quarterbacks and great quarterbacks is being able to have that calm demeanor once the game happens, because you spend all that time at practice. You've rehearsed a lot, spring ball, summer, and then fall camp. You've rehearsed a lot. Now it's game time.
The show represented, I want to ask more about Nico. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial, but they won't. They'll settle for less. banksandjones.com. Heath, when we talk about Nico and his play, you've had some insight because your son Navy is part of the quarterback room.
Right.
So people ask me this week and after the bowl game against Iowa, were you surprised about how good he was? But I still, on or off the record, whispers nothing. I have not heard one even semi-negative thing about him. So I'll be honest with you. I wasn't surprised, and I'm willing to bet you weren't that surprised either.
No, I certainly wasn't. I mean, obviously Navy and Nico are very close. That quarterback room is extremely close. I mean, one of the things that they did during fall camp is they brought their blow-up mattresses into the meeting room, so they spent the entire time in that quarterback room. And so, when they had a little bit of downtime, yes, they got to watch a movie, but they literally were together. And I think that builds camaraderie, that builds relationships, that builds that leadership, from, not just one player in that quarterback room, but throughout that entire offensive unit. And one of the things that I've asked Navy many times, hey, how's Nico doing? And the first thing he did, he said, Dad, he is such a great kid. I mean, he is such a great, he's well grounded. I think family is extremely important to him. I think as he's indicated in a lot of his interviews. And so, he surrounds himself with his family and people that really care about him. And I think that really goes a lot to the way Coach Heupel and Coach Halsley has Joey's done a great job, those quarterbacks, in preparing, them to be able to play. And just that mentorship that I think that Coach Halsley puts in that quarterback room, is more valuable than you would ever suspect when it comes to just X's and O's. It's one thing to coach, but it is actually to be a mentor. And I think he's very similar to the way David Cutcliffe was for me and Peyton and T. Martin and a lot of other quarterbacks that played at Tennessee, to be able to, have that mentor in the room, that it's more than just a coach, that's someone that you can count on. And those mentor relationships, are forever lasting. Right. And so I think that probably gives Nico that confidence and the ability to go in and make plays and be more mature than you would expect him to be this early in his career.
Yeah. I know what you think of David Cutcliffe. Yeah. So, and what I think of David Cutcliffe. So that says a lot. He's able to breed that sort of camaraderie. What was the mattress story again? Because so
they instead of going back to their apartments, all the quarterbacks, they just brought their blow up mattresses in, and they it's like Navy said, he'd leave his apartment at 6:30 in the morning, and he'd get back at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It's because they spent the time there in the quarterback room. They didn't leave the facility. They, on their own, they would spend more time watching film together, watching practice together. And so that to me is is that separator of, the relationship that I think that quarterback room has.
Gotcha. So these weren't pulling all-nighters necessarily.
No. Just during the day, because, you're going to still, I will tell you this, they don't do 2 and 3 a days like we did, right? So it's a little bit
not even.
They have it a little easier than we had it, right?
Not even.
And the luxuries that they have, I remember that first year going into the 20-hour rule week, it was like, wow, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to a collegiate athlete, because there was no such thing as 20 hours prior to that. But, all in all, it's going to, it'll help them, and they can count on one another when they're on the sidelines, lean on one another when the question comes up. Because, a quarterback oftentimes is an extension of that coaching staff, what they're able to see on the field, and they can communicate it once they get back to the sidelines and they huddle up on the sidelines after an offensive series.
What are your thoughts on Grayson McCall? I'm not sure how much you've seen him play, but
I watched him play a lot at Coastal Carolina, with watching App, 2 years there, and watching Grayson McCall. He's got talking about an athletic guy, right? You can't, he went to Porter Ridge High School there in North Carolina, outside of Charlotte, or Raleigh. Just absolutely athletically can do a lot. He's at Coastal Carolina. He oftentimes there was a few times that he just made some spectacular plays, right? Now he's playing on the big boy level, right? Now you're playing up, and so you got to be able to make those plays. I didn't think he performed very well against Western Carolina. I watched that game, but that doesn't mean that he can't go out there and just play lights out when he can. I think he's a really good quarterback. I was really impressed when I watched him play several times at Coastal Carolina. So I think he has a lot of positive attributes when it comes to on the field, and how he, his athletic ability to escape, run the play action. He does really well. The RPOs that they put in, I think they do real well. And he can perform. So we don't want to be off guard when it comes time for him to run the football, because he can escape and get some first downs. And, I think his legs are probably better than his arm, right? I think he runs the ball probably better than he throws it. But I've seen him make some incredible throws along the way. But I've also seen him make a few mistakes along the way too. Sometimes he'll want to force the ball and put it try to force it, and when he can probably just take a check down.
Yeah, his early interception was pretty ugly for a guy that
it was
had that much experience. I don't want to be mean.
Had a lot of experience, yeah.
Yeah. So Heath, let me ask you this, because unfair or not, Nico is being discussed among the top Heisman candidates in the nation.
Yeah.
And I've got a vote, and I know it's September, and I don't cast my vote until the day after.
Go ahead and turn that baby in, Dave. Go ahead and turn it in right now.
After all football is played. I take it all in. But I'm just curious. You finished second. So at what point did you start to hear whispers? It wasn't as pervasive because we didn't have social media, but at what point did you hear whispers that it was out there, and how did you keep yourself from thinking about that?
Well, there was some rumbles. You'd watch ESPN, and they'd have the Heisman Watch, on ESPN after the Friday, after the Saturday night games, that late, roundup of all the scores and highlights. So you got a little bit of that, but it really came down to when I was sitting in Bud Ford's office, signing some autographs for people, and they'd send out the photos and the footballs and things that they would collect. And he said, you got a shot at this, don't you? I said, at what? And so I was kind of oblivious to, what he was really talking about. And he said, there's you got a shot at it. And look, Charlie Ward, well-deserving, couldn't have gone to a better person, played extremely well. But it was one of those years that, you kind of, in the back of your mind, you would think about it a little bit, but you really had to focus on the task at hand and the games, and not let it, kind of interrupt or disrupt your ability to go out and perform and take your focus away from the X's and O's.
I want to get your prediction. I want to remind people to hit like and subscribe. Please turn the notifications on, so we'll have special visits that I love, like this with Heath, and just absolutely love visiting with Heath talking quarterbacks. So how do you see this game shaking out? Do you have a prediction for us?
I think we're going to still be very, very strong defensively, and defense wins championships, right? If we'll continue to protect the football offensively, start back where we left off on our running game. I think our running backs, probably didn't get enough attention, as well as they performed in the game. I thought they played exceptionally well. The patience in the run game was really great. I watched the running backs, kind of take a different demeanor than I had in the years past, and how they were patient. They waited on the blocks. It was almost to me like that they understood the blocking scheme better now than we had in the previous years. And I think that's, that means a lot. That means that the players are taking it to that next level of learning what it is to be a tailback in collegiate level. So that to me was a real positive. So as far as the outlook, I think we're going to have a tremendous ability to run the football on Saturday night. And that will put us in a really good, I think we're going to be really strong. I think we'll put 35 plus on the board. I really feel like we're going to be, a real good opportunity. They got a really good, secondary. Matter of fact, Aiden White, their top defensive back, will be a draft pick this coming year. I coached Aiden White in the secondary. I've coached him, I think, since he was 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old. He and Navy roomed together every fall camp, and they were captains of the team. His senior year, played at Christ School. And so, it's always great to be able to see him go out and perform. And, it's one of those things, perform every game except for this one, right? But, he's very competitive. And so I would just be cautious throwing toward him. He's really good. Aiden White's a really good defensive back. So I'd pick on the other side if I was the quarterbacks.
I'll say this. You changed me. Because I was a lifelong Cowboys fan, but when you played for the Redskins, I was like, I'd rather things go well for Heath. And I've got a Cowboys mug right behind me, but I was serious. And that from then on, I just found myself rooting for people more than teams in the
That's right. Yeah. I do that in the league now. I played for 3 different teams, and so it was like, who do I pull for? I pull for the players.
Yep.
I still pull for my 3 teams that I played for, but I enjoy the players and how they perform, and to watch their career over time.
Great stuff as always. Heath Shuler. We love visiting with Heath. Heath, thank you very much for making the time. I know you're incredibly busy, so we appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Greatly appreciate you.
More to come. Stay tuned. This is Off the Hook.
Ear looks a little fuzzy to you? You may want to consider LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Now with 2 Sevierville locations to serve you, East Tennessee's best eye care is more convenient than ever.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Couple of takeaways from the conversation with Heath Shuler as the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys, banksandjones.com. I kind of was asking a question about the quarterback position, and he was talking about that defensive line and how deep it was. And again, the things that come out of Nico, guys, some of you that are diehards and listen to the show every day, you've heard it so much, just what a great guy he is. Now, I want to get to your takeaways, and I want to play something if we can, Caleb, but what was your takeaway from Heath's comments? He also didn't seem extremely sold on McCall. Makes some mistakes. It just didn't seem like he was real high on Grayson.
Yes. So the thing that stood out to me is if anybody knows Heath Shuler, and if you know him like I do because you've covered Tennessee, you've covered the NFL, and you have covered Washington, which I have done. I don't mean Washington, the football team.
I mean, Shuler book.
No, I mean if you've covered Capitol Hill.
No, that's what I mean. You could write a Shuler book. You would be very good.
You're right. Yeah. Heath Shuler is trained in the arts of politics. And what I mean by that is he tries to be very measured without taking any bold stances that could get him in trouble later. And he all but took a bold stance that Nico Heisman is the best quarterback in college football. I mean, he tried his best not to say it. He really did. But he really couldn't hide how high he is on Nico Heisman. And I've been seeing this with a lot of people that, and I don't even just mean that with Heath. By the way, when I say that about Heath, that's a compliment. That's a unique skill I can't do. But you see that with a lot of the great ones. You know, Peyton Manning is very measured in trying to not take stances. Josh Heupel himself. All these people.
Now nobody's on Peyton's level.
Oh yeah, that's true. But
okay, I mean, I know that he's been in Congress, but no. I mean, nobody's on Peyton's level. Peyton didn't go on the Dan Patrick show for like 20 years because of one small comment Dan Patrick said about him. So he's more aware of his public image, in my opinion, than Heath is by a country mile.
Well, I don't mean, no, I think he's a very honest person. I think he instinctually, and a lot of people are instinctually, he's never the one to put all his chips on the table. Is that fair to say? He's never one to say go big or go home. And so it's for guys like that, it can be very difficult to say go big or go home on Nico. And he still managed to find himself in his interview with you being like, oh no, this guy's amazing. This guy's like the best quarterback in football. I mean, he didn't say that, but he effectively did if you listen to that interview.
Yep. I thought so. It was great stuff. Love visiting with Heath. Please hit the like and subscribe button as we would love for you to be a part of the program each and every weekday at 10 a.m. So be sure and hit those notifications, get those on. Also, I would encourage you to be a member of Hooker's Corner. And I apologize. It has been an incredibly busy week. I do not know the September prize from our good friends at Sports Treasures, but I can tell you it'll be awesome, and I'll know hopefully by tomorrow. It's not their fault, it's mine, because I've been so busy. Sports Treasures, over 5 million Sports Treasures. We love them, and they've got the big Chaz Lanier signing coming up, I believe it's a week from Sunday. So a week from Saturday, I believe. So we'll talk to him about that. We look forward to talking to Zach and getting his insight. And if you want to be a member of Hooker's Corner, you can be eligible for that monthly prize. And you can also get increased recruiting content and more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun. So we would encourage you to do that. I also remind you that thanks to Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design, that you can win a Garmin worth over $1,000. It's Rick Terry's Great Garmin Challenge, the Grade 8 Garmin Challenge, brought to you by Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. If you're a subscriber to this station and even a free member to Hooker's Corner, then you can win a Garmin worth over $1,000 that we'll give away when we hit 8,000 subscribers, and that's going to be sooner rather than later. So we want to break down the Wolfpack to watch. Caleb Calhoun, is that what we're doing next? I know the story is online.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the Wolfpack to watch, which, by the way,
do we want to do that right this second, or can we play what I think is an incredibly insulting fan video?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and play the fan video. Let's go ahead and do that.
All right, so this is a fan video, but I'm a native Knoxvillian, and I take pride in this community. It's a working class community, and this is to imply, I want you all to watch this, okay? Is this how NC State looks at Tennessee? Do they look at Tennessee as a cosmopolitan area, like fueled by silicon? But I think it kind of takes a shot at Nico too. So let's roll this up and watch it till the end, guys, because I thought this was basically just taking a shot at Nico. Let's pull that up and play it. Here we go. There's Nico.
Huge news on Rocky Top today that should have Vol fans pretty excited. Five-star quarterback Nico Heisman announced his commitment to Tennessee.
And this is a blue-collar school. This is a work ethic, hands in the dirt school. It's an agricultural school, it's a textile school, it's an engineering school. It's founded by tough people, and that's what this football team will be.
Oh, yeah, I think we need to bring it down because I think there's a curse word coming up. But the implication is clear. If you can go ahead and drop that, is that Nico is all fancy and NC State is all about being working class. So, Caleb, I'm curious your thoughts on that, as some NC State fan is trying to get their fan base fired up. But I think that should fire up Tennessee's fan base, because if you watch this football team, did that fan ever watch this football team? They're based in the running game. They're a tough football team. I guess Josh Heupel is just going to have to carry that around with him forever. That tag that you're a soft passing quarterback because passing coach because Lincoln Riley was.
Yeah, and as I'm watching this video all the way through, I gotta be honest. Like, okay, I get it. Like, they're showing these NC State highlights, and they're like, "Oh, we're blue collar, we're tough, we're physical." What? Because you tackle people sometimes, like when you're playing football. I mean, I love when like people kind of play that card. This does show a total lack of understanding of Josh Heupel's offense. That the idea that he's not blue collar. They win these games in the trenches. And everything goes by the trenches. And by the way, Tennessee has a top 10 and defensive and offensive line in the nation this year. That's every metric has shown that. I don't understand why they would do that video. I mean, Dave, do you think this is more than anything like people, when they do this, exposing themselves for their lack of understanding of Josh Heupel's offense and offensive schemes?
Yes, there's no question about it. I don't think there's any question about it. And then I saw Dave Doran trying to rile people up with the whole agricultural stance and working class school.
Guys, sorry.
No, go ahead. I want to give me a poll question on Dave Doran without us being mean, because I think he's clearly a second-tier coach, or is he worse?
I mean, I think he's second tier. Look, what he does at NC State, he maxes out what you can do at NC State. But let's be fair to him on that. Okay, this isn't like some powerhouse program. He does what can be done. I think his goal at NC State is to be their version of Frank Beamer. And is that disrespectful to Frank Beamer? Or
no. In other words, if he comes across a special quarterback, it could elevate them to a true championship level.
Right. And then the rest of the time, they may dominate the ACC and call it wins there. But it's like, that's pretty much it. Also, this whole we're an agricultural school, we're NC State. North Carolina A&T is the agricultural school in North Carolina, the Aggies. NC State is not an agricultural school if we're going to go through history here on this, okay? Secondly, it's stupid to ever do the whole agricultural school thing like Texas A&M does. It's not like we're the Aggies. Guys, all colleges are colleges now, particularly when most of the people who go to a college, I don't care if it's NC State or if it's Harvard or if it's Yale, you're usually going to college because your mommy and daddy paid for you to go there nowadays. And so nobody in colleges is agriculture blue collar anymore, okay? That's just not a thing.
No, new poll question. Dave Doran is a blank coach, and I just had some fun with it, if you guys don't care. Fine, good, great. Thank God he's not at Tennessee.
You know,
wow, how different would things be? And if you can go back, how close was Dave Doran before we take a look at his roster and key players? How close was Tennessee to hiring this guy who looks an awful lot like Jeremy Pruitt?
I told you guys they had like a set of note cards on who to hire in 2017, and it's like a tornado, like on the ranking of the coaches they want, and it's like a tornado hit that room and rearranged all the note cards because the order they went made no sense. Because they started with Greg Schiano. Oh no, they started with Dan Mullen. They were too late, so he was already down the pipe to go to Florida. Then they moved to Greg Schiano. Then they go to, I kid you not, in this order, they reach out to Mike Gundy, Jeff Brom, Dave Doran, and Mike Leach. I'm like, wait, how do you reach out to Dave Doran before Mike Leach in this time period? Whatever you think of Mike Leach, rest in peace. Like, everybody in the world is taking Mike Leach, and then the Mike Leach thing falls through just as Phil Fulmer is launching a coup, and of course they settle on Jeremy Pruitt. But the Dave Doran thing did almost happen, and as a matter of fact, my understanding is that Philip Fulmer was pushing the Dave Doran hire more than a lot of people before he actually got the AD job. And Philip Fulmer likes boring, bland coaches. He pushed Carl Torbush at ETSU when he was responsible for building that program. Why? Because Carl Torbush was good back in 1998. And, that is the Fulmer way. I just like this whole thing because I'm like, yeah, the whole concept of we're a blue-collar team, I don't even know what it means. I mean, Dave, you've watched enough football. Half the time when teams say that, it's because their offenses are terrible. They want to cover for the fact that they have awful offenses. So they say, well, we're just blue collar. We win tough physical. Best example is, do you remember the 2005 Tennessee-Alabama game, the 6-3 game?
Yeah, I was there.
And remember when Mike Shuler after talked about how that was a tough physical blue collar win? No, it wasn't. It was a win of which offense was worst.
Right. No, it definitely was. And yeah, I think that, I don't know, Caleb, if Tennessee continues to sneak up on coaches, but surely they're watching the tape. But I don't know why they continue to sneak up on fan bases, because that's what's continuing to happen.
I totally agree. And I don't this. Look, it's maybe NC State's more basketball fans than I thought. I thought they actually liked football a little more. But the concept that Nico is all glam and glitz and like when he's only been able to start 2 games so far this year. He really hasn't even had a chance to show what he does. I mean,
but let me ask you this: in all fairness, can I play devil's advocate? Does Tennessee and Nico deserve some of that because they were so aggressive in what they did in getting Nico and then suing the NCAA? Is that just expected, normal feedback from college fans?
Yeah, I mean, people would do that. I would think that, look, but let's cut when Tennessee ran the Peyton for Heisman campaign in 97, the Peyton versus Woodson debate, a lot of that was Peyton was seen as like the finesse, intelligent passer, and Woodson was the blue collar, plays both sides of the ball for blue collar Big Ten football. Wasn't that part of the mantra that sold him? Mm-hmm. And so it seems like that's what they're trying to put the label on Nico. I mean, newsflash, guys, all quarterbacks are finesse. Unless your quarterback is like a Tim Tebow or Cam Newton, like they're usually finesse players. And I mean, and the other part is, I'll go even a little bit deeper. It felt like maybe they tried to play the whole because Nico comes from California, he's finesse. But like, for those who don't know, you go to certain parts of California, there's very blue collar parts of that state, very blue collar working class parts of that state.
I thought it was insulting on a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a fan account. We don't generally pay a lot of attention to that. But in this particular case, if you're thinking about getting in your car and driving over to Charlotte, that might be the deciding factor. And I got in the car and I went and screamed and yelled at some NC State players. Work trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Truck saves you time with less back and forth trips. Trucks have passed the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks. With an app pod, work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you. To get around on the road tomorrow, no dealership runaround. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Service industry contractor, Work Trucks with an X. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks will find the perfect truck, outfit it, and make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. How many coaches in the SEC do you think are more intent on being tough up front offensively than Josh Heupel? Because I will say Kirby Smart is just fine winning a game 17-6, and that feels like a beatdown, but the score might not indicate as much. I don't think Josh Heupel would be very happy if that's the type of roster he had. So how many value toughness more than Josh Heupel?
You said Kirby Smart. Okay, does Kirby Smart value toughness or does he just value talent? See, this is the thing that's so relative is with Georgia is it's like this whole we need an identity of toughness for this. You're Georgia. You just get the best players. I mean, it's like your pick of the litter at that moment. So it's hard for me with so I'm trying to think of a team that like maybe a little bit lesser, but kind of overcomes things with toughness. I'll be fair to Mark Stoops. You can say what you want about him, but he really values toughness with that Kentucky program. And they are a tough football program. They're not a lot else, but they're tough.
Do you think Lincoln Riley looked at Josh Heupel in the offseason? Because Lincoln Riley knew that, I mean, he won a tough physical game against LSU, right? Wasn't high scoring, mid scoring. And they took a lot of transfers in on defense. Do you think he looked at Josh Heupel and said, you know, I can be me in my offense, but I can be that too? Because that defense for USC, I think Lincoln Riley was looking at Josh Heupel in the offseason to say, hey, here's the deal. I've got to improve my defense. And to his credit, he did, I think.
He did, but he also got a fit. This is what he did that Josh Heupel has done so well. Lincoln Riley got a fit for his defense and a guy who can coach the flow of the game in Deanton Lynn, who was UCLA's defensive coordinator last year. Now, why is that relevant? Even though they run different offenses, Dave, like Chip Kelly's offense is similar in the sense of I want tempo, I want to score fast. So he's going to get a defensive coordinator that focuses more on kind of making you work the field to score. Does that make sense? And the pass rush and things like that. And I think that's what Lincoln Riley focused on. And Deanton Lynn spent years as a secondary coach in the NFL. Years. And so I think that was a very good fit for him. And I think because of that, it worked finally with LSU. Because I think he finally, what he was trying to do was what Steve Spurrier did in the 90s, but you can't do that. Spurrier, as you know, Dave, he didn't really look for a defensive coordinator that was a fit for his offense. He's like, no, just find the best defensive coordinator out there because his offense it wasn't really a system. It was just reacting to the play in the SEC at the time. But Heupel and Lincoln Riley run actual systems. Because of that, you actually have to find a defensive coordinator that's going to complement your system. You just can't go out and find any great defensive coordinator that can draw up the best schemes in a year. And I think he finally did that.
And I don't know if Josh Heupel knew that Tim Banks would be a really good defensive coordinator, but I think he is. And I think he's a great fit because Tim Banks seems comfortable as long as his guys can make plays of winning a game 50-40. Most defensive coordinators wouldn't be okay with that. I mean, ultimately, I remember John Chavis was upset with his defense, even if they won a game, but if they gave up over 17 points, that was his magic number. To me, yeah. I'd rather have 5 sacks that sets up my offense, but the opposing offense has more time because the offense, Tennessee's offense is so fast. I'd rather set them up and win 50-30 than 20-10.
Yeah, and it and a lot of that depends on playing to the flow of the game. And sometimes your defense can play well, but you're going to play to the flow of the game. Dave, you I don't know if you were covering or watching this one, but do you remember the 5 touchdown performance by Peyton Manning against Kentucky in '97 and the height of the Heisman race? It was him and Tim Couch.
I remember watching it.
Peyton and Tim Couch get into a gunslinging fest. I mean, they are going back and forth. Yes, Tennessee's defense gave up 31 points, but they dropped 59. And it was the flow of the game. And with the Mike Leach, Hal Mummy offense, that was just going to happen. And even if the defense played well, but you were naturally going to give up more points. That was way ahead of its time flow of a game that you saw during that time. And David Cutcliffe and Philip Fulmer, to their credit, knew it. And they basically said, you want to make this a shootout? Let's make this a shootout. And they had Peyton Manning air it out.
All right, it is time to bank on it. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better, right down below cbtn.com. I've been with them for over 20 years. You should too. Caleb, bank on it. You cannot give me 3 players as we break down the Wolfpack that would start for Tennessee. And I will be really honest, I purposely did not look at your story. There is one that I have in mind for sure. But after that, it gets intriguing. So let's go ahead and start off. I bet you can't convince me that there are 3 players from NC State's team that would be in Tennessee's starting 22. Go with number 5 and let's count them down.
That's not even fair because I don't know if I can convince me, but all right, we'll go ahead and go. All right, so the 5 most important players for NC State against Tennessee on Saturday, the guys you need to watch. The first, Dave, I will say, you may say that, but I'm naming Justin Jolly, the tight end. Now, Tennessee did target Justin Jolly heavily in the offseason. He was the UConn transfer. They ended up not getting him because they got Holden Stays and Miles Kitselman, and Ethan Davis was going to turn into a starter. But they did want Justin Jolly. He had 56 catches for 578 yards last year. And in the opener for NC State, he had 5 catches for 75 yards. Look, Tennessee is still unproven in the secondary, particularly on the safety and nickel spots. And they're unproven in coverage at linebacker. All the spots that are crucial to covering the tight ends. So they're going to have to keep an eye on Justin Jolly. That could be a mismatch if they're not careful.
I'm so high on Ethan Davis, I can't go there. You made a good argument. He could have been Tennessee's starter if Davis needed another year to develop, but I'm so high on him that he would be behind Davis, so I can't say that he would be a starter. Great argument, though. Caleb, number 4.
All right, number 4, Aiden White at cornerback. Aiden White was an all... He'd start. Yeah, he was an all-ACC cornerback last year. Tennessee's going to look his way. Tennessee's going to have to deal with him this year. And look, the question with Aiden White is we don't know if he's the type of cornerback that can stay with receivers down the sideline, because we saw this with Georgia 2 years ago. If a cornerback can stay with the receiver on the outside down the sideline, that is the one thing that neutralizes Tennessee's passing offense more than anything else. And
agree with all that. I think he would start. Be sure, take a second, hit that like button before we get to number 3 of the Wolfpack to watch. Well, by the way, I hate a singular name for a mascot like Wolfpack. The Wolfpack is, I hate writing that. I can't wait for this week to be over. But go ahead and hit like and subscribe now, and we'll get to number 3. It's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Absolutely. Number 3, Caleb, on the Wolfpack to watch.
Number 3, Davin Van. And I'm going to go, I'll just step up and say that he wouldn't start for Tennessee. And you don't have to convince me. He's a defensive end.
You're not even going to try, are you?
No. Okay, so NC State lost their biggest star on defense last year in Peyton Wilson, who had 17.5 tackles for a loss and 6 sacks. Dave, even with those numbers, I don't think he could start. Peyton Wilson could start on Tennessee because this is where they're so loaded at edge rusher. And Davin Van had 7 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks. UT is still questionable on the offensive line with both Lance Hurd and John Campbell having made mistakes last week. So I do think Van could test them from a matchup perspective from the other side. But that doesn't mean he'd start for Tennessee because that's just not possible. I don't know. But, Dave, I'll just be honest, though. You give me any depth chart in the country. I'm even including Georgia's. I don't know if their edge rusher could start for Tennessee.
I would agree with that.
So that's not even fair.
No, we'll see. I mean, I want to see Tyree West be consistent, right?
Yes, I do too.
Yeah. So, all right. Who's up next? There's one other that I feel certain would start for Tennessee, but let's get to him.
Kevin, his last name is not contraception, guys. It's Concepcion. Kevin
Concepcion, I've been told. There's more of an emphasis on the C. Somebody told me that.
Concepcion.
Yeah. Unlike the Concepcion that played for the Reds. Does anybody remember his name back in the day? I think it was David Concepcion. He is very Squirrel White-like. Had he followed the same path as Squirrel White, he would be a starter at Tennessee.
Hey now. Yeah. Would he, even if Squirrel White were still on the roster, though, or would Squirrel White have to be off the roster?
I guess I'm pretending that he came in instead of Squirrel White. I'm reaching a little bit. Is that fair?
No, that's fair. And I think they're the same type of player. He's 5'11", 189. He had 71 catches for 839 yards last year. The crazy part, Dave, is he had 41 catches for 41 carries, for 321 yards last year. 10 total touchdowns. He's used on a lot of their misdirection horizontal run plays. You guys are going to ask me about this, and I'm going to tell you guys this up front because I close with this, but I might as well tell you guys this now. Jordan Waters, the NC State running back, many people say that he's a feature in this game. No, he's not. They're not going to be able to run the ball. That's one thing NC State won't be able to do. So if they're going to run the ball, it'll be on misdirection plays to Kevin Concepcion more than Jordan Waters.
Do you remember the G-Gun, Gerald Jones?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then the Dolphins stole it and ran it the next year with Ronnie Brown.
Yeah, for those that don't recall it, that's when everything was going down the tubes for Tennessee in 2008, and they would line Gerald Jones up, a receiver, to try to manufacture some yards out of the shotgun. And we called it John Adams and I called it the G-Gun, and we made up a name for it on the radio. And Dave Clausen, the offensive coordinator, referred to it as that in the press conference the next day, which meant he was listening to our show, and we appreciate that. And I remember Philip Fulmer afterwards coming up to us and goes, "Who made up that G-Gun?" And I said, "Oh, it's John Adams." And I can't say what he said next. But my point is, with Gerald Jones, Caleb, why did Tennessee have to do that? Because they didn't have enough playmakers elsewhere. In other words, if Tennessee didn't have Brew McCoy, if Tennessee didn't have Dante Thornton, if Tennessee didn't have those guys, they might have to make Squirrel White a do-everything guy. But he doesn't have to because they've got other players that play that position. It is, in my opinion, the biggest factor in this game, and I said it in my column, and we'll get to that. It's the biggest talent deficit that Tennessee has had since they played with Josh Heupel against a ranked team.
Biggest talent advantage.
Advantage. Yes. NC State. Yes. Biggest talent advantage. I misspoke. Would you agree with that?
No, I would absolutely agree with that. I would totally agree with that. And they typically, I'm talking myself into things. I said that NC State would be an ugly win for Tennessee at the outset of the year. I said they would, stumble, make some mistakes. It'd be like Pittsburgh when they're trying to figure things out. But the more we've talked in the week, Dave, you're really talking me out of that. You're talking me out of thinking it could be a convincing win for Tennessee. I'm not there yet. I got a day to do my picks, but something is telling me that this is going to be a little more different than we realize.
All right, I think it's a blowout. Who's your top guy?
All right, the top guy is Grayson McCall. Now, I get what people are saying, and you're right. It did stand out the way Heath talked about Grayson McCall, Heath Shuler, the way he spoke about him. But someone's got to get the ball to Concepcion, and as it was corrected, it's Jolie, not Jolly. I apologize. It is Justin Jolie. I try to get people's names right on this, and I hate when I don't. But it is Justin Jolie. McCall was a 5-year starter for the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, played under Jamie Chadwell, who Tennessee fans wanted to be hired a few years ago when Josh Heupel was hired. Jamie Chadwell is now at Liberty, having replaced Hugh Freeze. Tennessee fans also wanted Hugh Freeze hired after forcing out a guy for scandals. That would have been a terrible idea. But Grayson McCall is more mobile than people think. He can move in the pocket. There was 1 year where he had 260 yards rushing. He was 26 of 40 for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Did have an interception. I mean, the guy is a veteran, and he's got some weapons. And Tennessee, it ain't like that. It ain't like Tennessee has a great track record in the secondary the last 3 years, even though we think they're better this year. So, I mean, you got to put a quarterback that people believe in. You got to put him at the top of the list when Tennessee's facing them right now, right?
Yes, but I think he's extremely limited. Extremely limited. I'll have my predictions coming up. By the way, I did pick Ethan Davis and Jordan Ross to make big plays and almost nailed the score. Somebody came up to me. We were doing John Pennington's pregame show, and they said, "What did you pick the score?" It was almost exactly. And I said, "Yeah, I did." I also take credit for Jordan Ross and that other guy who was pretty good. And I had no doubt that Nico would play fantastically. You're going to continue to see Ethan Davis make plays, but I'm going to go in a bit of a different direction. Hang tight. 2 minutes. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll tell you what's going to happen in the NC State game next. Off the Hook Sports.
When the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 24 Ford Maverick Hybrid, 25,515. 23 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,995. 24 Ford F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $59,757. Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back. Portions of the program brought to you by our friends at Asia Cafe. Asia Cafe is phenomenal. I go to the Callahan location, but they've got more than that. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family secrets. 5 locations to choose from, asiacafe.org. They also have that awesome 6-to-1 Brazilian cocoa energy booster premix instant white coffee. Been around since 1909 as the Lim Dynasty right there, and it's phenomenal right here in Knoxville, Tennessee, asiacafe.org. All right, let's get to 4 downs, as I'm going to tell you what I believe will happen in the Tennessee football game on Saturday, where they play the Wolfpack. Can we just call them the Wolves from now on, maybe? Because that would be a cooler nickname. Wouldn't that be a cooler?
Not if you watched wrestling in the late 90s, man. The Wolfpack was a really cool stable. Although I didn't like it. I think that storyline killed the NWO storyline with WCW, but it's a difference. It was still kind of cool in the moment.
I would never have guessed that you were a wrestling fan. All right. Oh, there he goes. All right.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, here are my 4 predictions. Caleb, you can tell me if you agree or disagree. What I would like to put up on the poll question, though, is who will be Tennessee's defensive star? And Caleb, if you can get to that, then we will go ahead and get that started. But here we go. It is time for first down. As always, our good friend Cooper Mays, who I'll visit with this afternoon for you, says,
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do it, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right, first down is this. James Pierce will have 3 tackles for a loss at a minimum. I believe Pierce only played 10 snaps against Chattanooga for a reason, to keep him fresh long-term. So he's incredibly fresh. He also dropped into pass protection a lot. I think that was showing NC State that, and I don't think they needed to kill Chattanooga's quarterback either. So James Pierce, minimum 3 tackles for a loss, and I wouldn't be surprised 2 sacks.
I can see that, particularly given how, like I said, all the horizontal plays they run, they give up a lot of tackles for a loss. So I could see James Pierce finally getting able to eat some lunch on this one. And when I say eat lunch, I mean a sack lunch, Wedding Crasher style. Num, 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 num. Who remembers that?
Barely.
But I think James Pierce goes off this week too. I think James Pierce goes off, but I think a lot of the front 7 can go off.
All right, Coop, what down is next?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
It is. All right. Squirrel White will reel in over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown. Here's why I think that. I think Tennessee worked the outside receivers to, again, give NC State something to look at, and then they'll rely more on the slot, a la Jalen Hyatt in 2022. I still believe that's where Tennessee ends up as an offense, but I think you'll see it early in this game. And it will depend on what opposing teams do down the line to determine if Tennessee continues to rely on the slot. But that's what this offense is built to do, is get the slot receiver open and put the safety in a bind.
I'm totally with you on that. I mean, I said Squirrel White's the most important ball to watch. I mean, this dude is going to go off. I mean, a lot of that was how Chattanooga rolled coverage last week. And I think also Heupel, part of this was trying to keep people happy. You wanted to get Dante Thornton and Brew McCoy kind of worked and involved in because they were coming off injury. I think this is the game where Squirrel White's just going to go absolutely bonkers. I mean, Dave, you might see 150, 200 yards. Could we see a Jalen Hyatt game? I'm just saying.
Oh, I don't think he's going to be in the game that long.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right, third down, and you can read this at offthehooksports.com. Tennessee will score another special teams touchdown. Caveat, or at least set one up. I think there will be a blocked kick, a blocked punt, or the return game. We'll get it deep into NC State territory, either via punt or kick return. But here's the reason I think so. I'm not just throwing a random pick out there. Is I believe special teams are best when you have the best talent. You're looking for those guys that are 6'2", 6'3", around the 210, 220 pounds that can run. And I believe Tennessee has more of those guys playing special teams than NC State does. So I believe they will make another big-time play on special teams. Caleb?
Yeah, that's a big one. I can't go with you on that. I'm playing percentages. A special teams touchdown 2 weeks in a row is crazy to me. So like that, just by the nature of percentages, I really can't sit there and say they're going to score one. But I don't blame you for thinking that. I think they actually put emphasis on special teams. Maybe you know more about this than I do, but it seems like they really do say, hey, it reminds me of Urban Meyer. Remember how much emphasis Urban Meyer put on special teams at Florida?
He did. And I think Tennessee has. I just don't think they've had the talent to run guys out there and risk them at their natural position, which could be defensive end or could be wide receiver or could be whatever. I don't think they've used those guys or had the depth to use guys with like talent. So my prediction coming up in 30 seconds, the show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Darn right. All right. I have Tennessee winning this football game 52-17. Not even close. I believe.
Wow, you really you gave away your pick. Gave away the suspense tomorrow.
Well, it's online. So a 52-17 will be my prediction. I'm not asking you to make yours. I'm just curious what you think about that prediction now that we have a chance to hash it out.
Having studied this a little bit more, I understand why you are so high on them winning in that level of a blowout. I can't take that leap yet. I need to sleep on it, Dave. Really, I'm not joking either. I mean, I really need to sleep on it because it's just, again, Tennessee still, I do think they have chemistry advantages and things like that, but there's a few spots where they're still kind of working out some kinks, and this is a Power 5 team to start the year where they're working out some kinks. So I do think it's a little bit trickier. I could see some mistakes being made. That's why it kind of reminds me of the Pitt game a couple of years ago, but this Tennessee team is better than that Tennessee team. And I don't know. Do you think the NC State team is worse than the Pitt team was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Or do you think they are? Do you think they're worse?
Yeah, that was a tough physical football team. That team was also a tough matchup because they had lighter defensive linemen. Coop told us that last year.
That's actually very true. And what's one of the great points you make is that's how Pat Narduzzi builds that program, is he focuses on the defensive line more than anything else, i.e. Aaron Donald.
Talking about one of the best defensive tackles and one of the most athletic in the history of the game.
Right, and that's how he focuses things. And you're right. If you're a team that's still trying to figure out a couple of kinks, a physical team like that's the one that can give you the most type of hell, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the Pitt game is substantially, heading into it, more difficult than the NC State game, the Pitt game in 2022. It might be as important because if Tennessee does stumble and I'm wrong, then the Tennessee players pointed that Pitt game as the game that they came together on. So if I'm wrong, this could be a longer season than we thought, but I don't think I am. The UPS store in Hardin Valley, they're there to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated, conveniently located. They're at 10629 Hardin Valley Road. The link is right down below, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. Now, my question is, if it's not Squirrel, could it be Chaz Nimrod playing some of the slot? I want to go back to one of my projections. Should I have just said slot receiver because of the way they might substitute in between drives, Caleb?
Well, do you think they would put anybody in the slot? Do you think they would put Dante Thornton in the slot before or Chaz Nimrod in the slot next? Because I feel like Chaz Nimrod is way more of a wideout. I think he's just too. I put Brazel in the slot before Nimrod. I think Nimrod is just too slow.
I think Brazel's going to, I believe, play outside. I think Thornton. Well, I don't think we had him on. I know that he knows how to play the slot, so he could slide in there, and that would be very valuable. I just can't tell you for sure that who that's. I can't tell you for sure if Tennessee's really going to take 3 receivers out and put 3 receivers in between drives in a game versus a good opponent. I think that's easy to do against Chattanooga, and it's easy to say that beforehand. But when you really are let's say it's middle of the third quarter and it's closer than I think, don't you want Brew McCoy out there? Are you really going to sub him out when it matters?
No, you're not. You're not. That's a very good point. I mean, you can't do that. I totally agree with you. But yeah, it's I don't think you're going to sub out Squirrel White. I think Squirrel White's going to be the guy that the dude is just too good. And I thought they disrespected him last year by trying to force Dante Thornton into the slot. I thought that was unfair. I thought Squirrel White he's been amazing for Tennessee. And honestly, he made a lot of physical catches last year that defy his size. So I've always been a fan of his for that reason.
Yeah, he's on the freak list, which is the best speed combination. Who puts that together? It's the top 50 in the...
It's the Athletic. I forget the person, but it's the Athletic who puts it together.
Who was the other Vol on it? Was it Pierce?
It was Pierce. Pierce is a freak.
They missed a lot.
Speaking of, you ready for the poll question, the results? Because they're a little bit surprising, Dave.
Yeah, let's get to that poll question. What do we got up there?
All right, who will be Tennessee's best defensive star versus NC State? Now, James Pierce, no shock, is leading, but believe it or not, he only has 50%. And I think that's the surprise because I put Keenan Peely in at 22%. I put Arian Carter in at 3%. And Dave, I threw in Boo Carter, and he's second at 25%. So our listeners and our viewers believe that Boo Carter could push James Pierce for the biggest star in the game on Saturday.
I'll tell you why I'm a little bit scared of Boo Carter on Saturday. And I'm going to do that in just 2 minutes. Okay, so hang tight with me. Actually, not even that long. How about a minute? Hang tight off those sports.
Looks a little fuzzy to you? You may want to consider LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Now with 2 Sevierville locations to serve you, East Tennessee's best eye care is more convenient than ever.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Let me tell you why I'm a little afraid of Tennessee's star position in this game. Caleb's mentioned it. The NC State loves to do a lot of horizontal running. They love to do the end arounds and things. And I think it's very important to stay home. And a story that we'll post a little bit later, I think Willie Martinez has the toughest job this week preparing for this team because he's got to convince a guy named Boo Carter, who has a great nose for the football, Caleb, to stay home, even though everything in his football soul tells him to go after Grayson McCall. But there are going to be times he has to stay home. That's the only thing that scares me, really, is that Tennessee's, because we do have to be honest, Tennessee's defensive backfield is unproven. We think it's talented. We think they'll all come together. But this would be a situation where I would feel a lot more comfortable if Jordan Thomas was a star, but he got hurt the first week of preseason camp. Thoughts?
So you think the moment can get to Boo. You don't think Boo is ready for I mean, I don't want to say there's no way to make this sound mean, but like, are you questioning his maturity for this type of game?
Yes. And it's not because of him specifically, it's just because he's a freshman.
Because because freshmen can get wild by the moment.
Right, and he didn't face a real challenge in the first game. I think ideally what would have happened is Jordan Thomas is your starter through the Oklahoma game, and then you're working Boo in, and then Boo takes over. Fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Again, I'm being so unfair here in this way, but from the other side. But am I unfair with the Eric Berry standard? Because I mean, Eric Berry was thrown in as a freshman, and I mean, like that was ready to go.
Well,
And,
but Boo Carter. Listen, I've been told by people over there that he's a mix of Del Carter and Eric Berry. I know that sounds like Hot Train 101, but that's coming
Also,
from somebody. If I told you who it was from, who doesn't want to hop him up, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, I believe you."
Also, there's a level of, okay, put it this way. When you're very, very athletic at defensive back, you're allowed to not be as fundamental. As a matter of fact, you're encouraged to not be as fundamental. So Eric Berry was almost encouraged to overplay on a lot of balls because he was so quick he could recover. And so, honestly, think about it. It's like baseball, Dave. You ever have you? Oh yeah, you know this. Bernie Williams played for the Yankees, so you know this.
Loved him.
When you have a rare elite athlete at center field, you teach them to play exactly the opposite of how you teach someone to play center field fundamentally, right? Because with the rule with center field fundamentally is your first move's back, you stay back close to the wall, first move's always back and then run forward. But if you're athletic like a Bernie Williams or an Andrew Jones, no, you play shallow. And you don't be afraid to play the ball immediately because you're so fast you can recover. And I think that's the truth with the secondary. So what if Boo Carter does overplay? But what if he's so athletic he can recover when he overplays?
I didn't think Bernie Williams would come up in this conversation. Nobody else is talking Bernie Williams. Where do you get Bernie Williams on a Thursday? Where
he was
else?
more valuable to that Yankees three-peat than Derek Jeter. Come at me. You guys come at me. Come at me. Matter of fact, Derek Jeter cost the Yankees rings by not moving to second base when A-Rod got there.
I can mute. See, that's the thing. I can mute Caleb's mic. When he starts talking about the Yankees, I can do that. That's the only time I'll do it, Caleb.
No, I respect the Yankees. I just don't respect the overall love fest Derek Jeter gets. He was never the best player on that franchise during those 5 rings.
I totally disagree, but that's fine. I love Derek Jeter, and you're not going to change me otherwise.
Or he made a flip with his glove. Oh my gosh, he was an underperformer at shortstop. He was a liability on defense.
Okay. I almost hate you. Hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. If you haven't turned those notifications on, we need you to do that as well, as it's NFL time, kids. And there are a lot of former Vols that are going to be a factor in this upcoming football season. Caleb wrote about them. And we'll start a poll question. Who is your favorite former Vol in the NFL? I'll go ahead and get that set up. But give me the first couple of guys that are in action in this weekend because the season starts tonight.
Yes, we have the Ravens tonight are playing the Chiefs, I believe, right? Is that the right? Did I get the game right for tonight?
I've been up since 4 a.m. writing. I don't know.
Yeah, I do believe.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so there are sorry, I'm just double checking this real quick.
Yeah, let's go ahead and confirm.
Yes, it's the Ravens and the Chiefs. I apologize. And there are a couple former Vols in the game, most notably the star of all of them, Trey Smith is in the game tonight for the Chiefs. And he is very high on the list, so I got to save him because we're talking Trey Smith. Guys,
absolutely. And he is going to be on our poll question for your all-time or your favorite Vol in the NFL. Trey is going to be on there. I can't wait for him to get paid because he hasn't yet. He had the blood clot issue, got a small contract. So that's what I'm looking for is Trey Smith to get paid because he's probably not 100% financially independent for his life, but he's playing like it. So, all right. So we're going to count down these lists. Do you want to start at number 10?
Yeah, I want to first say there are 3 former. This list was tougher than it's been in years. Tennessee's starting to get better represented in the NFL, way more than they have in the last 12 years. So that's a good sign for them. And that the reason that sign is good is because there's 3 quarterbacks on NFL rosters from Tennessee this year: Dave Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, and Josh Dobbs. I can't remember when there's been 3 quarterbacks on NFL rosters from Tennessee, but none of them are on this list because none of them are starting. Shows how deep Tennessee is in the pros this year. So number 10 is Jalen Hyatt. Now, Tennessee's turning back into wide receiver U because Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Josh Palmer, Velus Jones, and Juwan Jennings are all in the pros. Palmer had the best year last year with 585 yards receiving. Tillman and Hyatt both had in the 300s. I think one of them's bound to break out this year, and I think it's Jalen Hyatt. I think the Giants are really invested in Jalen Hyatt, so I think they're going to go all in. By the way, a couple other pass catchers in the pros, Princeton Fant and Jakob Johnson, are also returning NFL players. But of all those pass catchers, I think Jalen Hyatt's going to have the biggest year, and so he's on the list.
Okay, so poll question, who is your fave VFL in the NFL? Trey Smith, Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Alvin Kamara. That's the group I went with. That's the quattro. All right, who's next on VFLs in the NFL?
All right, call me crazy, David. This is a full-on projection. I got Jalen Wright in my top 10. I think Jalen Wright's going to be an all-rookie running back with the Dolphins. I think he's a perfect fit. There are a couple other running backs from Tennessee right now in the pros, but as far as the rookies going to teams, Joe Milton I mentioned, there's Kamal Haddon, Ramel Keaton, McCallum Castles, all going to teams. I think Jalen Wright's going to be the best rookie from Tennessee this year. And I'm seeing like all rookie team, maybe 1,000 all-purpose yards. He's in such a good fit at Miami.
Hey now. Agreed. And I love that coach there and what he does with that offense. I'll go ahead and tell you, he'll rush for 1,000 yards this year. Who's next?
All right, number 8, underrated. Tennessee's got a few defensive tackles in the pros right now, and Matthew Butler and Kendall Vickers, but Shy Tuttle starting for Carolina. He started each of the last 3 years, two for New Orleans, 1 for Carolina. He's with Carolina again this year. He's not in the greatest situation, but I'm sorry. I love those defensive tackles that are regular starters in the pros that, they don't rack up a lot of stats, but they're so valuable to their teams.
And he hasn't fallen on a helmet in the NFL either.
He hasn't fallen on a helmet. That is very true.
There you go. Boy, Butch, you're a special guy.
You suck, you jackass.
All right. Who's next?
Dave, you're going to laugh at me, but I have him on my list every year, and I'm going to have him on my list until he retires. The greatest long snapper in NFL history.
Oh, my
Morgan Cox is on here. And by the way, Justin Tucker is widely considered the best kicker of all time, right?
Yeah. Okay.
He had his worst season. He had his worst season last year. The first season ever that Morgan Cox wasn't snapping for him. You know this, Dave. Long snappers make kickers more than people really give them credit for. Morgan Cox made Justin Tucker a good kicker. Morgan Cox made Justin Tucker.
A little bit of a reach, but I'll give you
also,
that the grouping does matter.
Yes, and Morgan Cox goes to the Titans. The Titans with Nick Folk. I'm a Titans fan. Guys, we missed 1 field goal last year. We had our best kicking season in years, okay? So Morgan Cox, yes, he is on my list. You guys can come at me all day, but the long snap, a great long snapper is the most underrated player on the team. And Morgan Cox is the greatest long snapper in history.
Okay. How close are we to number 1? Where did Morgan Cox get to?
He's at number 7. I'm at number 6 now. And
have to move faster.
All right, sorry. Doesn't need much explanation, but Alvin Kamara gained over 1,000 yards for the 7th straight year last year, but he is showing some signs of slippage. So, but that's why he's down at number 6, but he's still top 10.
I got Trey Smith, Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Alvin Kamara on your fave VFL in the NFL. Mine's Alvin Kamara. I've never covered a junior college kid, and I know he got in trouble in Vegas, and I'm not condoning that, but I've never covered a guy from junior college that also didn't get as much playing time as he should, that just smiled all the time and was great to work with. And he went through a lot to get to that point. So I've got big time respect for him. I hope he's not around the wrong people, and I'll just leave it at that. Who's up next?
I totally agree. Up next, and this is a projection, but Darnell Wright, most physically gifted offensive lineman, maybe ever from Tennessee in the NFL, starting at tackle again for the Bears. I think a breakout year at number 5.
Hey now. Absolutely. I agree.
Number 4, Alante Taylor, been a starting cornerback for 3 years. Tennessee is kind of cornerback U too. They have Emmanuel Mosley, Cam Sutton, Mika Abernathy, Theo Jackson, all in the pros. Sutton is suspended for 8 games, though. The other 2 are reserve guys. Alante Taylor is becoming more and more of an important player. He's entering his 3rd year. I think he could be a star.
Yeah, I think you could argue right now Alante Taylor is the best player out of this group. Or if you could pick one to be on your football team, that would be it, because he plays corner, one of the 3 most important positions on the field.
I totally agree. He's not the guy I have number 1. Really, you're right, because the guy that you're going to see at number 1, you wouldn't pick him number 1 because of his position, but Alante Taylor I would take over him because of the fact that he plays corner. Totally agree. Number 3,
by the way, record number of people in the YouTube a message board. So please hit the like button. Take 1 second and do that. Make sure you're subscribed. And also, if you don't mind, turn those notifications on. You'll hear from Cooper Mays a little bit later in the day. All right, go ahead, Caleb.
Number 3, he's a 7-year starter in the NFL, and last year, after starting for 7 years, finally had his first Pro Bowl and All-Pro season, and that was Jalen Reeves-Maybin with the Detroit Lions at linebacker. Jalen Reeves-Maybin is a very reliable player, very smart player, one of those players that helped carry Tennessee during the Butch Jones disaster years that really kept them afloat for 2 9-win seasons. So Jalen Reeves-Maybin, number 3.
I love Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Good player. Would he start on this team?
He might. Between Arian Carter, Keenan Peele, he could probably beat out one of those guys.
He would have been a good Mike. He's not as physically gifted as Arian Carter, in my opinion. All right, who's number 1?
Yep. Well, number 2 for the record is Trey Smith, and does that need any explanation? Contract year for him. He's already been great, and he's going to be amazing this year. So
going to get paid.
Number 1 is the best rookie. Is the guy who had the best rookie season for a Tennessee player since Alvin Kamara himself, Byron Young. With the Rams, he had 8 sacks as a rookie last year. He should take a huge leap forward this year. By the way, Darrell Taylor and Derek Barnett just missed the list. Both 2 good edge rushers. Tennessee's also edge rusher. Byron Young, Dave, is a superstar, and we're always talking about James Pierce, but Byron Young seems like the guy who started the trend of edge rushers in the pros under Josh Heupel.
He had 8 sacks last year?
Yeah, he was all rookie, 8 sacks.
Wow.
With the Rams.
Apex Apparel Group Design. Check this out. Look at my shirt embroidered Off the Hook Sports. It looks fantastic thanks to Apex Apparel Group Design. You get 15% off your first order, whether it's for spirit wear or whatever you need for your business. It's the only people I would call. The website is right down below, or you can call Tyler. Call him directly at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Now, I know a lot of people think to themselves, hey, I can just go get this stuff online. But Tyler makes it where you don't have to worry about something coming in wrong, and you don't have to worry about the wrong shirt or how it feels, because they're right here in Knoxville. Call Tyler and you get 15% off if you mention Off the Hook Sports, 865-919-3001. It's time for the last look. And we'll take a look at this day in Tennessee football history, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me, no contacts, no glasses, Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. And check out this snazzy website.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
This day in Tennessee sports history, give it to me, Caleb.
Sorry, my thing was slow on you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
All right, this day, Dave, I think you're muted. Maybe I am. Hold on.
No, I got you loud and clear. Just tell me this day in Tennessee
All right,
sports
okay. It's on me. I apologize. This day in Tennessee history. Tennessee, it is the 26-year anniversary of Tennessee's 34-33 win over Syracuse, where Jeff Hall hit a game winner to beat the Orange and beat Donovan McNabb, which sparked Tennessee's national championship season.
Wow. That one's pretty good. And you earned some fantastic brownie points with me, as you can order the book, Celebrate 98, The Untold Stories Behind Tennessee's 1998 National Championship, for your collection or for a gift. We have autographed copies as well by Fred White and other players. You can choose from those, and the QR code is right there. If you would like to purchase the book, please do so, and we greatly appreciate those that have. So he is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We'll talk to you at 10 o'clock each and every weekday right here on Off the Hook Sports. Please click the like and subscribe button and turn those notifications on. Cooper Mays coming up later today. For Caleb, I'm Dave, Off the Hook.